Good evening there. A little Texas electric blues there, kind of in the vein of Stevie Ray Vaughan. We are here in Texas, just another quiet April evening. Very inactive weather pattern, though we do have some storms out to the west. And we can see those right here where this moderate risk is. Now, just to let you know, let me switch over to my camera. I'm running the new Open Broadcaster software package again, like we did last night, and I brought down the bit rate. So hopefully we're not going to have those hiccups again, but if we do, just yell out in chat, and we will get that fixed. But things are still kind of experimental here, so if things collapse, we'll just go back to the old package here. All right, let's head into the weather charts, and I do have a couple features here. One is North Korea. I figure we haven't, they're in the news lately, a little bit of tensions going on, but we can check out the weathercast from there this evening. This is from Pyongyang several hours ago. And we saw there the highs were about 72 there, and the lows in that country way up in the north were about -6. And this kind of gives you an idea how they do the weather maps. You get these isobars every 2 millibars. It's kind of funny, we don't have that on our weather maps here in the U.S. really, except for maybe the Weather Channel there. And they use these circles to kind of highlight areas that they're talking about. And then this here, I think they're using the Fangyong satellite right here, the Chinese geostationary one. So that's just a little bit of checking in there, and looks like just low pressure there in the interior here, and kind of a southerly gradient in place with high pressure down to the south. So there you go. Now I wanted to mention Victor Cabot did one of you guys mentioned that the video is buffering. I'm going to keep an eye on that. But let me just move into this real quick. Victor Cabot sent some photos, and I wanted to talk a little bit about this. This is an infrared image from Monday morning. So we're looking at cloud top temperatures. And white is going to be the coldest cloud tops here. And this is from GO16 here. And this little area of higher cloud top, that's going to be Old Anvils. This is about 6 or 7 in the morning. So what does it look like up to the north? Looks kind of clear, doesn't it? Well, we've got Victor there. He flies one of the routes up there, and we can send him up to check out the weather in this area. So let's see, what does it look like from the airplane? Well, for that, we're going to switch over here real quick. Yeah, there you go. We're heading north. This is in the north direction. And as soon as we get out of that area of high cloud, we've got this up ahead. Looks like kind of a low cloud layer. So, what could be going on there? Little look at the instrument panel there. You can see we're just a little bit past Denton, coming up on Gainesville there. So as we get further, you can see more definition on these clouds. They're quite a ways down there. So if we were able to take a look at the observations, let me switch over to the directory for that. Let's see. Okay, they're in this other directory here. So we're going to check out the clouds underneath the Sandville canopy. Okay, so somewhere in here I've got the observations. There it is right there. So if we search for Ardmore, that's going to be right under those cloud tops. And there's the Ardmore observations right there. So you see we've got 2100 broken, 2600 overcast. Another station we can look at is Gainesville, Texas. Overcast 2000. So we're talking about high stratus and low stratocumulus. So we've got some very low cloud layers very close to the ground. So that's actually what's happening there. And now you get some idea why this is not showing up on satellite imagery. So if we go back to that satellite image, the problem is that the cloud tops on this stratus are very warm. They're very close to the ground temperatures out in Oklahoma City and Wichita Falls, so it kind of blends in. So when the sun comes up and we start picking up the visible imagery, well, look at that down here. We can zoom in on that real quick. Okay, so here's the route of the flight. The sun is coming up, and this is the area of cloud we're overflying. And you can see it's pretty substantial. It goes all the way up to Oklahoma City. So that's just one way that these clouds are able to hide and kind of blend in with the warm ground temperatures there. So thanks to Victor for this imagery of 2 days ago. And with that, I'm going to go over and take a look at the chat and see what's going on, see how we're holding up with this new software package. Okay. And let me get the mic out of the way. Carl Berghoff checking in here, and Andrew. Fred up in North Dakota. Got Mark and Fun with Tech in Central Texas. Sue M is here. And there's Victor. Ryan Toomies and Kevin McKinney is here. Ron Chalfont. Eddie W. Andrew says the video is doing it again. Well, that's a shame. Okay. We'll have to probably switch over if that is the case. Megan John is here, and Michael Burrell. Brett Dean says he's learned that Hale Alley, Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming has the most hail because the freezing levels of the atmosphere in the high plains are much closer to the ground. Yeah, that's certainly true, especially when you get into the Rocky Mountain region. It doesn't take much instability to get hail out of those thunderstorms there. Fun with Tech, seeing buffering at 144p. That's probably not on your end. I think that's the video that we're pushing out here. We're having some problems here, so I'm going to fix that in just a second. Plymouth State has a make your own map option for lower and upper level maps. Good to know there. Mike Estwick checking in and seeing buffering also, and Victor Kebo freezing, Sue M freezing, and I think we're going to go ahead and switch over, so give me just a second. Such a shame there, but we gave it our best try. Be back in a second. Okay, we're back up with the old program. We'll see how that runs, and there we go. Got the SPC stuff in the background, and let me bring that up here real quick. So there we go. Storms out in West Texas there. And we've got a slight risk out for that area. The Pecos River Valley. Monahans, all the way down to the Big Bend area, Texas. And got a very tiny tornado risk there, and we'll check that out briefly. So here's the 250 millibar map, and this is what's driving everything across the central U.S. here. Polar front jet coming onshore right there in Oregon. pushing into Minnesota and the Great Lakes. So polar front jet pattern very far north. That's where 70 to 100 knot winds are. Got a little bit of a band of stronger winds. Looks like the polar front jet, or I'm sorry, the subtropical jet may be kind of poking its head northward across Texas. So we see that characteristic anticyclonic flow right there. And we see 50 knots, maybe 65 around at Albuquerque. So those are our stronger winds right there. A couple of weak troughs coming across the Great Basin area and the Ohio River Valley. But if we want to take a closer look at the waves, we need to go to a lower level. So here's the 500 millibar flow. The waves are showing up a little bit better here. Kind of reiterating our polar front jet being well up to the north. And you can see we lose the subtropical jet. So that's definitely an upper level feature there. Troughing off the west coast, and this is what's going to be affecting the plains as we get into the weekend. Here's a look at the satellite imagery. And this is good for taking a look at the origins of this thunderstorm activity. And we can see that a lot of it is concentrated in the mountains of New Mexico, pretty far west of Midland, towards the Carlsbad area. And this is a good sign that we have upslope flow, where we have humid air pushing far westward against the mountains. And this tends to be a very common pattern late in the spring. We're talking about June here. Give me a second. I forgot to move the baffling. That'll improve the sound just a little bit. Okay, so this is a pattern that we sometimes see in June, and this brings the onset of the monsoon to New Mexico. That's not the pattern we have right now, but it's very similar. And we can take a closer look at that with the thickness and pressure. So we've got high pressure across the southeastern U.S. driving some easterly flow across Texas and giving us that upslope flow into New Mexico. So we've got a cold front kind of banked up against the mountains, kind of like that right there. And then further north we find our polar front up into Wyoming and Yellowstone and Montana. And then that picks back up with the next system right here in Oregon. And we can trace that on through Sacramento down to San Jose, Oakland, and off the coast like that right there. And then behind that, cold core system off the Washington coast. So what do our soundings look like here at Fort Worth? Or I should say Dallas-Fort Worth. We're not located in Fort Worth, but if you think back to what we had on the maps, what kind of weather pattern do we have? We've got high pressure here and easterly winds coming from that high out to the east. So we're going to expect to see a little bit of a frontal inversion. And let's bring that up real quick. So do we see that? Not really, just barely, kind of a very faint feature right there at about 4,000 feet up. So we can see that easterly flow right there, very shallow. Winds kind of light and variable. And only above 10,000 do we pick up the westerly winds. But above that, lots of dry air. And then we pick up a little bit of cirrus up at about 30,000 here. What about Shreveport? They're a little bit closer to the high pressure area, so we expect to pick up the cold air mass a little bit more. And it's possible that could be it right there. We'll have to take a look at a few more soundings, but this could easily be the subsidence inversion associated with this dry air here. So not quite sure what that is. So we'll move further east to Jackson, Mississippi. Do we pick up the cold air mass there? No, I think it's also modified there. In fact, if I take the lower part of this column and extend it down to the surface, we find ourselves at about 23 Celsius in the 70s. So I think a lot of our cold air is actually modified pretty well at this time. So I'm just kind of hunting around, looking at soundings, looking for any trace of the cold air. Trying Nashville here, no trace of the cold air. So I think the only remnants we have of that cold air mass is the easterly winds from that high pressure over the southeast U.S. And then the other part of the air mass is out in the Rocky Mountain region, Albuquerque. So let's check out the air mass there. It's definitely going to be a whole lot different, and we see very warm air mass, even warmer than what we have in the plains. In fact, if we brought that down to the surface near sea level, which would be about right there, that air mass would be up in the close to 90 degrees. So pretty good warm temperatures there, lots of dry air, and pretty good westerly winds there. Then we'll take a look at Denver, and they've probably got a little bit of easterly flow. We can see it right there. But also the column very warm. And we see this line. This is the furthest left that I've ever remember seeing on a sounding. I'm talking about the slope of that, leaning way over to the left. You're not supposed to be able to have a slope that is any further left than these green lines here. These are dry eddy bats. And you can't exceed that, because if you do, the atmosphere is going to spontaneously overturn. That's what we call absolutely unstable, and the only area where you're going to have something like that is going to be close to the ground, like just off your sidewalk, off the streets, where you have like the shimmering air rising off of it. That's the only place where you're going to have a absolutely unstable air mass like that. So this is actually an artifact here, and I would suspect that that could be an instrumentation failure there, or a little bit of inaccuracy. Okay, let me take a look at the chat, make sure our video is working okay. We are back on the old broadcaster, so we shouldn't have any problems, and if we do, I might be having Microsoft updates dialing out or something like that. So let me read through this real quick, and let's see. We got Tree Nelson made it in, and Megan John mentioning the maps there, helpful for a synoptic meteorology class there. No buffering from Fun with Tech. Victor seeing a little bit of that, and Ahmed checking in late there. Ryan, who works with transportation there in Florida, says a few pilots flying into Oklahoma City and Dallas tomorrow and returning in the evening. Checking how the forecast and weather conditions pan out for flight plans there. Carl says stream seems nice and stable for him. Tom J is here, and Kevin McKinney calling tornado warning there on southeast New Mexico. And Cayo Delphi, haven't seen you here in a while. So, tornado warning in southeast New Mexico. Why would that be there? Any thoughts about that? We do have one very prominent ingredient, and I can probably call that up on the 0Z sounding from Midland. Well, they don't want to report, so I'm going to go and pick out their morning sounding. Okay, not reporting there either, so we're going to go straight to UCAR, and they're going to give us a sounding. So UCAR there, head to their upper air page, click on Midland, and there we go. So any thoughts? What might be causing some tornadic activity there? Well, one factor may be the high pressure over the southeast U.S. Remember, we've got a component of wind going from east to west like that. And that's exactly what the photographs there need to get some curvature going. So we should take a look at the wind plots, maybe see if the winds are kind of backed locally where those storms are. I'm going to go into digital atmosphere here and erase the map and bring up some data. Let me set some radar sites up for New Mexico, and we'll take a look at what's going on there. Okay, so here comes the radar for the Hobbs and Carlsbad area. Crunching the data from the Weather Service, and there we go, a very large area of rain and storms in that region. So we add the surface plots on, and we see what looks like a little bit of a circulation in that area. The problem is a lot of the flow is kind of disrupted in that area due to all the rain. However, if we trace the streamlines like that, there's almost certainly some areas in here where we would pick up a little bit of curvature in the photograph, maybe in this area right here. So that's going to be a factor on a day like today. Now, what if we want to really take a look at the surface field here? Well, instead of going to the METAR data, we can go to the Texas Tech website. Go to Google, put in Texas Tech Mesonet. And this is something Bruce Haney, noted storm chaser from the 90s there, he had a hand in getting this site started up, and that gives us some pretty detailed data in this data sparse area of Texas here. So here we can kind of see some north winds coming through that area. I see a little bit of divergence in this area here. See that right there? That's going to be a meso high centered on the Hobbs area. And if we go down to the Fort Stockton area, in fact, I can draw that in a separate color. Maybe a bit of a different air mass down along Interstate 10, like that. So if we put that together, there might be a boundary in this area. That could be significant right there. Another possible boundary. And we've got some 70-degree temperatures in this area right here, and a little bit of a contrast with cooler temperatures up in this area right here. So let me show you what I'm talking about. See right here, we have 69 here around Iran. There's actually a town there named Iran. And then you go up to San Angelo. Winds come out of the northeast, and the temperatures fall around Big Spring here. Winds are coming out of the northeast there. So it looks like there's some sort of boundary right in this area. So if we were chasing on a day like that, like today, this is one thing that we would be watching here. Numerous boundaries in this area. So probably these two right here. And you can see the wind field is probably set up kind of like that right there. So if we were looking for deep convection, I would say that this would be a favorable area right here. Pretty good dew points just south of that. So let's check out the radar and see what's going on. We can actually take that surface data, and as part of a proper analysis, you're going to transfer that to your analysis chart. So when you do something like that, you're going to want to carry that over to your working charts right there. So you would bring that boundary in and the southern boundary, and you'd be working with that. So this cell up here in the Hobbs area, that's pretty far back behind that meso high, so picking up a little bit of a mesoscale accident in that area, that would be very difficult to forecast more than 15 or 30 minutes out. But tornado warning there, radar indicated. So if you're in that area, you would certainly take your precautions there. A little bit of a bow echo shape on this storm, so possibly some strong winds ahead of that. And we can take a look at the base velocity to get an idea of the wind field here. So we see, let's bring up the winds. You can see right down here, 30-knot winds. And down at the bottom, a few 50-knot winds right there. So possibly some localized gusts back behind this outflow boundary. And we can see it right there with the spectrum width. So some really neat structures right there. Okay, moving on. Let me put the chart sequence back up here. Still need to take a look at the dynamics, so we're going to do that real quick. Let me get this centered. And I'll get this map stopped, and let's see here. Okay. Take one more look at chat here. Okay, a little bit of activity here. Let's see. Finding my place here. Okay. Where am I? Okay, there we go. Mike Estwick says video is better. Victor Cabo says video is stable. Mike Estwick 75 in Denver. Jason Boggs checking in, and Sarah Wood also checking in there in Indiana. So we'll head right into the dynamics here. And let's do that right quick. There it is, West Coast troughing coming in, but not really any waves coming through the Rockies except for this one right here. And that's helping to kick off some storms down there around Texas. See how it's 0Z working across New Mexico right there. So that'll move eastward overnight gradually, and a little bit of a mesoscale convective vortex possibly over the Texas Panhandle. Things look pretty quiet over the next couple of days in the mid-levels. Up until about Saturday, Friday night or Saturday right here, we see the polar front jet working its way inland, and here comes some instability through the Rocky Mountain region. So that's going to be the start of some new development, new destabilization, and that'll affect mostly the Central Plains and the Northern Plains, it appears. Okay, this is probably a good time to take a look at the forecast. Let me switch over to the GFS. Okay, for our webcast tomorrow night, which is going to be Thursday evening, there we go. We can see the Gulf is open. We've got a few of these pressure gradient lines extending out into the Gulf of Mexico. We have a southerly gradient in place going all the way up to this cyclone along the northern tier states. Warm front in the Dakotas right there. And we've also got a cold front. And that's going to be about the approximate location right there. All the way down from Salt Lake City to Las Vegas, and then down to about Thermal, San Diego, and possibly as far west as LA. Somewhere in here, it's kind of hard to tell, but somewhere in Southern California, that front is definitely going to be right there. And there's that anti-front configuration. Lots of precip back behind that polar front there. Dry line also active. It'll be continued to be pushed very far westward against the mountains. And we've also got the lee side trough there from Denver all the way up to Casper and Billings. So a little bit of thunderstorm activity in the panhandles right there. We see things a little bit active around Amarillo. And then that kind of dies off overnight as the storms move into Kansas. Then for Friday, things start out kind of quiet on the plains. We see some cyclogenesis right there in eastern Colorado. The main polar front has moved up into Kansas. There it is all the way up in Saskatchewan. So warm front way up there, cold front coming on down into the Four Corners area. And that's the configuration we got there. It looks like a little bit of an MCS going across Minnesota, but GFS calling for quiet conditions across the Central Plains. But things will change once we get into Saturday. We saw the upper dynamics coming in from the Rockies. It's going to be destabilizing things in this area. Then for Saturday evening, there we go. There's our situation. Cold front from Minneapolis down to Omaha. Stationary front through Wichita down to Amarillo. And then the tail end of that front through New Mexico down to about Tucson and Phoenix, kind of like that. And you can see that there's a little bit of veering of that low-level jet. We are still getting the influx of moisture from the Gulf, but we have a veered flow like this. So that's not a very good pattern for hydrating these storms up in the northern plains. So that'll be a problem up north. But likely down in Kansas, we'll still have enough instability in Kansas itself, maybe as far south as the Panhandles, for a few storms in this area, probably the dry line active in that region right there. Then for Sunday, there's the pattern on Sunday. It looks like high pressure building in across the central U.S. Our northern plains systems moving eastward into the Quebec area. So there's a quick look at where the fronts are. Then we kind of lose it there through the southern Rockies. Upslope flow is back in Texas. You can see the higher pressure out in this region right there, pushing a little bit of a wind component westward into West Texas. So we're going to see a pattern on Sunday, a little bit like what we have today. Okay, then for Monday, let's see. There's our chart for Monday. We're under a southerly gradient. Gulf is open. Kind of looks like some weak capping here. Looks like some fairly extensive shower activity. We have another Pacific system working inland. So for Tuesday, that's crossing the Rockies. And we see some pretty good thermal gradients across the Great Basin into the Rockies, and here's where our front is. Set up just like that, and the dry line probably extending southward through the Texas Panhandle like that. But things look quiet, according to the GFS on Tuesday. Then for Wednesday, it looks like most of the energy moves up to the north again. Texas and the Central Plains just gets this tail end activity here. Then moving into Thursday, the 20th. Mostly active in the northeast right here. High pressure across the central U.S. That'll clear out a lot of the moisture. And then we get cyclogenesis again in the high plains of New Mexico and Colorado on the 21st. Friday there. So probably an active day there And this could be an active chase weekend, possibly. We're talking the 21st, 22nd. And we're edging closer and closer ever so much to May. And that's when chase season is really going to open full swing here. Okay, let me take a look at the chat here. We've got, let's see, Mike Eswick saying the GFS has been struggling. Yeah, it's a good point. We may have to start taking a look at the Canadian model, since we have that available to us. Ryan says Panhandle appears to be the heavy target. According to Carl, seems to have a bit of a cold bias over the northern plains. That's good to know there. Megan John, thunderstorms likely for Minnesota on Friday. And Fred Reamer, oh no, 528 decameters and snow. So Fred is up in North Dakota and not very happy with that there. So, okay, I think that's about all I got for this edition of Meteorology Lab. I'm going to have to do some more playing around with that broadcaster software package and get that working. So hopefully we can put that buffering problem to rest. Anyway, I hope we'll see you all tomorrow, and if you have any video or pictures, definitely send that in and we'll try to use that. Thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.